7 seconds to die. We're about to break down a conflict that gave us all a terrifying look into the future of war. This is the story of the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War, a 44-day clash that completely rewrote the rules of the modern battlefield.
So, what does it feel like to fight a robot? For Armenian soldiers back in the fall of 2020, this wasn't some far-off sci-fi idea, it was their 7-second reality. That buzzing sound of a drone overhead meant you had to make a life-or-death choice right then and there.
In fact, this is what many military analysts are calling the first war in history won mostly by robotic systems. It was an absolutely decisive 44-day victory for Azerbaijan that saw humans and unmanned systems teaming up in a way that, frankly, nobody had ever seen before.
Okay, let's get into it. To really understand how drones pulled this off, you first have to grasp the huge strategic problem Azerbaijan was facing. This was not supposed to be an easy fight. For decades, the whole conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh was basically frozen. And from a military point of view, you can see why. The region is a natural fortress. It's this landlocked, kidney bean-shaped territory completely dominated by the Lesser Caucasus Mountains. I mean, just look at this. This is basically a defender's dream. The average elevation is over 3,000 feet. Almost 40% of it is covered in thick forest. And the roads? They're narrow, winding death traps for any attacking army. On top of all that, Armenian forces had spent 26 years digging in, building these complex trench systems, and they held the high ground. A conventional ground assault would have been an absolute bloodbath. And this right here, this is the prize. Military strategy always talks about decisive terrain. That's the ground you absolutely have to hold to win. In this conflict, it's the city of Shusha. It's a natural fortress on a plateau, and it looks right over the capital, Stepanakert, and controls the main highway into the region. It's simple. Whoever holds Shusha holds Nagorno-Karabakh. So you get this fundamental difference in thinking. It's crucial. Armenia, who won the first war back in the 90s, basically prepared to fight that exact same war again. They built static defenses, thinking their mountain fortress was unbeatable. Azerbaijan, on the other hand, took its oil money, got a lot of help from Turkey, and built a modern military. They were focused on brand new tech and totally new ways of fighting. So how do you solve a problem like a mountain fortress that everyone says is unsolvable? Well, Azerbaijan's answer wasn't to just throw more soldiers at the wall. It was to change the methods of war itself. You know, there's this great analogy that perfectly explains this. A cook follows a recipe, but a chef understands the principles of cooking, so they can create something totally new. Armenia was the cook, getting ready for the same old meal. Azerbaijan decided to be the chef, using the timeless principles of war, but with revolutionary new ingredients. And wow, when you look at the hardware, the technology gap is just massive. Armenia was relying on a pretty standard Soviet-style army, but Azerbaijan had invested a ton of money in this diverse fleet of unmanned systems from Turkey and Israel. You had advanced recon drones, the now infamous Bayraktar TB2 armed drones, and these things called loitering munitions, basically kamikaze drones, like the Harop. Okay, so to really get what they did, you need to understand this military term, the kill chain. It's just the process for an attack. You find a target, you track it, a commander somewhere decides to hit it, and then you hit it. But traditionally, this is a slow human process, with info passing up and down the chain of command. Azerbaijan's entire strategy was to just smash that old model to pieces. Their goal was to use their network of drones to accelerate that kill chain, from the speed of human decisions to the speed of machines. They wanted to turn sensors directly into shooters, to collapse the time between finding a target and destroying it to just a few seconds. So that's the theory, but how did it actually play out? Well, the whole thing kicked off with this one absolutely brilliant deceptive move that won them the skies. So, put yourself in their shoes. Here's the tactical problem. You know the enemy has good surface-to-air missiles, but they're hidden, and they won't turn on their radars, which would give away their position until they see a target. If you send in your expensive drones, you risk them getting shot down. So, what do? And their solution was genius.
Absolutely genius. They took these old Soviet-era crop dusters, we're talking 1940s biplanes, and turned them into crude unmanned decoys. They flew these slow, clunky targets right at the Armenian lines. And sure enough, the Armenian air defense crews saw them on radar, thought, hey, easy kill, and switched on their systems. The second they did that, their radar signal lit them up like a Christmas tree, and Azerbaijani kamikaze drones that were already waiting nearby just swooped in for the kill.
The results? I mean, they were just devastating. According to one former Armenian official, his country lost half of its anti-aircraft forces in the first 15 minutes of the war. At least 16 key radar and missile systems were confirmed gone. It was a catastrophic blow that the Armenian military just couldn't recover from.
And just like that, with that one ingenious move, Azerbaijan had total air supremacy. The Armenian forces on the ground were suddenly blind and completely defenseless from above. For the next 44 days, the sky belonged entirely to Azerbaijan, period.
And once they owned the sky, the second phase of the plan kicked in, the systematic disintegration of the Armenian army, piece by piece, from above.
The numbers are just wild. Look at this, over 130. That's how many Armenian artillery pieces were taken out by just one type of drone, the Turkish Bayraktar TB2. The Armenian guns were just sitting there in their prepared positions, totally exposed to anything looking down. But here's the psychological part. Azerbaijan didn't just destroy targets. They recorded everything in high def and then blasted it all over social media. This was an information war as much as a military one. These videos were everywhere, and they had a crushing effect on Armenian morale as parents back home scanned the footage, absolutely terrified of seeing their own sons. The drones just worked their way down the target list with this terrifying, cold efficiency. First, the air defenses, then the command posts, then artillery, then the tanks and armor, then the supply trucks trying to bring up reinforcements. They even hit bunkers and trenches. There was simply nowhere left to hide. The Armenian army was being taken apart from the sky.
So, after all is said and done, what's the big lesson here? What does this conflict really tell us about where warfare is heading?
Well, this war gave us the first real look at an evolution from that old kill chain to what people are now calling the kill web. This is the idea of a network where every sensor is connected to every shooter, often using AI to find and hit targets at machine speed, with a human just on the loop to supervise, not to manually direct every single step.
The Second Nagorno-Karabakh War wasn't just some regional conflict. It was a landmark moment. It was a clear, brutal preview of a new age of robotic warfare. And right now, militaries all over the world are scrambling to figure out what it all means. The question this war leaves us with is a pretty simple one. Who's paying attention, and will they be ready for next time?